Do you know what makes me mad? Political pundits that won't challenge the hypocrisy of the left and the right in discussions surrounding the Israel and Hamas conflict. This is the first episode of what I hope will be weekly looks at the levels of lunacy both the right and the left are willing to tolerate, ignore, or dismiss to keep their ideological worldview intact. Levels of lunacy number 1, Israel versus Hamas. Let's go.
Joining me now is Councilman Ronald C. Rice of Newark's West Ward.
Joining me right now is Newark Councilman Ronald C. Rice.
Joining me again, our Newark Councilman Ronald C. Rice.
Joining me now from D.C. is the Senior Director of Government Relations for the National Alliance, is Ron Rice.
What up, sports fans? Curious Formula here with a new video.
Okay, we're back. But before we get started, you know what I need you to do. I need you to bless your brother and subscribe to my YouTube channel below, like and comment, and do the same for my other social media platforms. So, what is the definition of lunacy? Lunacy is defined as wild foolishness, extravagant folly. And that is what both the right and the left do when it comes to this particular conflict. First, let me acknowledge the tragedy on both sides of this horrible war. And that's what it is, a theater of war, the latest chapter of an ongoing conflict since the partition in the late 1940s. The loss of life for over 70 years is permanent reminder of man's cruelty to man that we have yet to be able to solve. But even in the midst of inhumane cruelty on both sides, the levels of lunacy the left and the right are willing to accept to justify their ideological proclivities is incredible, myopic, and just plain wrong. On the right, the state of Israel is always right. Based on our strong partnership and bonds since the U.S., along with Great Britain, led the UN in establishing this state, the right to exist is predominant above all other considerations. And in a region where we have few friends and lots of enemies to our vital international interest, Israel has been that democracy, that nation that has not only been a dependable ally, but one that has the military heft to be a base of strength in an unstable region. I can remember as a local elected official in New Jersey, near many Jewish communities, being given policy papers and updates from AIPAC and other organizations that were helpful and informative. But I also remember that collateral being woefully scant regarding relations with Muslims in general and Palestinian life specifically within the state of Israel. The facts from several reliable sources is that life in Israel for Palestinians resembles apartheid. Listen to Tahisi Coates here.
And he said to us, I can't walk down this street. If you want to continue, you have to continue without me. And that was shocking to me. And we walked down the street and we came back and there was a market area. Hebron is very, very poor. It wasn't always very poor, but it is very, very poor. Its market area has been shut down. But there are a few vendors there that I wanted to support. And I was walking to try to get to the vendor and I was stopped at a checkpoint. Checkpoints all through the city. Checkpoints obviously all through the West Bank. Your mobility is completely inhibited, and the mobility of the Palestinians is totally inhibited. And I was walking to the checkpoint, and an Israeli guard stepped out, probably about the age of my son. And he said to me, "What's your religion, bro?" And I said, "Well, I don't, I'm not really religious." And he said, "Come on. Stop messing around. What is your religion?" I said, I'm not playing. I'm not really religious. And it became clear to me that unless I professed my religion and the right religion, I wasn't going to be allowed to walk forward. So he said, well, okay, so what was your parents' religion? I said, well, they weren't that religious either. He says, what were your grandparents' religion? And I said, my grandmother was a Christian. And then he allowed me to pass. And it became very, very clear to me what was going on there. And I have to say, it was quite familiar. Again, I was in a territory where your mobility is inhibited, where your voting rights are inhibited, where your right to the water is inhibited, where your right to housing is inhibited, and it's all inhibited based on ethnicity. And that sounded extremely, extremely familiar to me.
I can also remember the religious clashes that Orthodox Judaism in Israel had with the Ethiopian Jews that were brought into that country during the drought in Ethiopia in the 1990s, and the racist ways they made them change their practice of Judaism to conform to how that religion is practiced today, even though the Ethiopian Jews, the Phalatians that they call them, many of whom scholars and historians say are the actual original Jews from the Torah and the Bible, practiced a more ancient version of that same religion. There is indeed second-class citizenship, abuse, and murder, and a life that looks more and more like Jim Crow conditions in the South circa 1945. But the right ignores this reality, concentrating only on the atrocities that are befalling the Israelis, while calling the atrocities visited upon a people that had nothing to do with the Hamas terror attack as part of total war, or calling any criticism of the Israeli response as anti-Semitic, or likening it to siding with people who allow the Holocaust, for God's sakes. Even Representative Tlaib was attacked by her Republican colleagues as being anti-Semitic on the House floor. Now, on the left, it's no better. To them, the Palestinians are always right. And as a progressive, I get the need to support oppressed people throughout the globe, especially those living under the harsh conditions in places like Gaza. The left is against second-class treatment of populations of people that have been historically discriminated against and threatened by the hegemony and exercise of power over the powerless. It is always interesting to me how the left can turn a blind eye to the treatment of women, the LGBTQIA+ community, hell, even dark-skinned black people and fellow Palestinians within their own community. See, some of the same folks demanding that we support the Palestinian way of life could be killed, jailed, etc., just for being who they are protected to be in the United States. As a student at American University, I remember squaring off verbally with a Palestinian student and his fellow countrymen about what he considered the laziness and lack of intelligence of African Americans, and making snide remarks about dark-skinned African Americans. And exactly where are the Jews supposed to go? If the left wants Jews to leave Israel, where the hell are they supposed to go? I mean, are we on the left really about punishing a despised and oppressed people because of the decisions that their government makes, even as we don't blame the Palestinian people for the decisions of the Hamas government? Or does the left believe the racist stereotypes and tropes society says about the Jews? Maybe the way some on the left really believe the tropes society says about African American intelligence and that black boys and girls cannot really learn, but I digress. The fact of the matter is that there is blame, there is accountability, there is empathy, there is camaraderie, and there is grace that needs to be extended and placed on both sides of a bad situation. And holding fast to a set of positions and perspectives because it supports your ideological bent and worldview is short-sighted and does not take into account the totality of the circumstances historically, culturally, and based on the actual facts on the ground. And your algorithm does not allow in new ideas or thoughts and doubles down on your willful ignorance. Our political culture is too lazy to do the hard work of learning. Don't you be. But what do you think? Subscribe, like, and comment, and join my other social media platforms. We are building it as we fly, and as George Clinton of Parliament Funkadelic says, think, it ain't illegal yet. Stay curious.